why are we revising our Constitution? Well, the quick and dirty answer there, I use the term quick and dirty because it's the one we use as social scientist, Senator, to mean that we had very little time and therefore I have to truncate my responses. I know I can deliver a whole session here of my lecture, but I know that there are many other resource persons. And I hope you will invite me another time so we can continue this conversation on many, many aspects of the changes that you want undertaken. Structures are very important. Structures are really the institutions within which you envelope or you embrace individuals and groups, and the structures will define the limits to action. They will define the floor and they will define the ceiling, the bottom and the top, so that an individual, when given a particular structure, like if this were a glass, the individual knows that it can only work within the structure of the glass. Like this, cylinder. Like, you talk of the leche flan, which can be formed in different configuration. If you form it in an oblong, the milk and the sugar will only work along the edges of the oblong or whatever shape the leche flan will take. That is the nature of structure. Now, if you put warm bodies in structure, then the warm bodies will have to align within the structure. And when they so align within the structure, you invariably change their behavior. So the basic groundwork, Senator, of the changes that you want would really be this philosophical perspective that structures will result in behavior change. That's the reason why we're revising the Constitution. Because what you have seen from 1987 is that there had been a lot of things that we have done and not done. And we think that a change is in order. And the change can only come from changing the relationship among structures. And I think you hit on one of the major relationships, and that is between the executive and the legislature. Now, people seem to get confused in regard to federal and parliamentary systems. I think you mentioned that already, Senator Pimentel. When you talk of federal systems, you really talk of the relationship between the national government and the subnational units. So when you talk of a parliamentary system, you're talking about the relationship between the executive and the legislature. Okay, what is the difference between a presidential system and a parliamentary system? Siguro, konting kasaysayan. Nag-umpisa ang parliamentary system sa tinatawag na Mother of Parliament, Great Britain. Nagkaroon sila ng bloodless revolution in 1688, where once upon a time, it was the king who declared the law. And I'm sure you remember the divine rights of kings, Senator Robin. The divine rights of kings simply declares that the kings represent God, and therefore, whatever the king says is law. But they had this glorious revolution, and so they constituted what is called the parliament. The word parliament comes from the French term parler, P-A-R-L-E-R, which means to talk. That's why parliament is a talking environment. You talk. If you zipper your mouth there, you'll be ousted in the next election because that's why no bobo can be member of parliament, by the way. I'm sorry for the use of the word, but I cannot find any other one which is appropriate. Meaning somebody who has nothing between his ears will eventually be kicked out of the parliament because he will not be able to converse. He will not be able to exchange views. He will not be able to sustain the question hour, which will happen. I think you mentioned that a while back, because in the question hour, every member of the parliament will be asked, what have you done in agriculture? What have you done in health services? And the like, and will be made accountable for what he has or has not done. So, the beauty of this is just starting to unravel. And I wish this will be a continuing conversation, Senator, so that, this will require many, many sessions, I assure you, because I'm just truncating my thoughts now. I'm putting them all together, and then maybe later on, I will spell them out in more detail, if not in this session, in some other sessions. All right. What is the other outstanding quality of a parliamentary system? The fundamental principle is Parliament is supreme, which means whatever the Parliament declares is law. Of course, if you have a dual executive, then the executive, who is a ceremonial executive, will give his or her imprimatur, but as only pro forma. You recall Queen Elizabeth? Queen Elizabeth will dare not give the royal assent. It is given as a matter of course, because it's been taken away from the royals. They are just there for, I don't know, maybe for decoration, and for us to gossip about, and find out what dresses they're wearing. But if in a parliamentary system, you will have two executives, the one who will be there when your prime minister is kicked out of office and when the government of the day is not there, and therefore you have a president there who will be the bridge towards the next government of the day. I will expand on this later because I have limited time. But yes, Parliament is supreme. Whatever the Parliament declares today, the next Parliament can repeal. That is how powerful the Parliament is. That is the essence, that is the vortex of the principle of Parliament is supreme. So, any law can be repealed at a later time. Do you recall Great Britain getting out of the European Union? That was a decision of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party went to the people and said, if you elect the Conservative Party members, we are going to get Britain out of the EU. And the people voted the Conservative Party members. Did they vote for Theresa May, who was the Prime Minister at the time, or Boris Johnson as Premier? No, they voted for these two people as members of Parliament. It only happened that both Theresa May and Boris Johnson were leaders of their political party. And when they constituted the majority in the Parliament, the leader became the Premier. That goes for every other parliamentary system. Whoever is the head of the majority party or a coalition of political parties becomes the Premier. And the Premier is the head of government. The President is the chief of state. All right. The other pluses of parliamentary system, and has been noted by Senator Padilla, is that there is a fusion of the executive and the legislature. You are not electing an executive because the Prime Minister will elect from among the majority party members the heads of his cabinet. If you'll notice, if you've been to Great Britain, or if you have seen it, as they are being videoed, you'll notice that the configuration is something like this, although the walkway is a little bit bigger, maybe double this. That's the reason why there is a term called crossing the aisle, isn't it? Because that is the aisle. If you cross the aisle, you actually change your political color. So let us assume the speaker is there. Whoever is seated to the right of the speaker is the government of the day. You are the premier. I am the shadow government. I am the head of the minority party. At any time you are ousted, we will exchange places. And let us say Senator Pimentel is seated there as the head of housing. Opposite from him would be Professor Monsod, who will be the housing minister even when your government is ousted. Do you see, even just looking at the parliament in a process, you already have a story there, isn't it? A lot of stories there. The concept of rightists and leftists came from that. Whoever is in the right of the speaker wants to keep the status quo. You want to be the government of the day. The one who is on the left of the speaker wants to change the status quo. We are the shadow government. I want to change you. I want to be the next premier. So, all right. What is the other beautiful part about parliamentary system? There will be no notion of term limits. If you are elected as a member of parliament, you can be elected for as long as you are alive or can continue to discourse in parliament. And you're elected by your electoral district, by the way. If you do not perform, of course, the next time you are not elected. And the best part about that is you don't even need to spend for your election because it is the political party to which you will plug your umbilical cord because it will pay for your campaign expenses, your radio and TV time. But beware, If Eric here is a member of the political party, I'll tell him, Eric ha, bayaran ko yung campaign expenses mo ha, and radio and TV time mo. Pero kwidaw ka, whenever you are in parliament, you got to toe the party line. Which means, if we are, let us say, against abortion, dapat against abortion tayo. Yun ang party line. Kung hindi, tumiwalag ka sa party. Do you see? Party discipline. Kasi hawak ko na siya eh. Ako nagasto sa kanya. Okay. And the other better part of this election is that we're not going through a very torturous, ano ba yun? Parang 3 months na election na naubos na yung salapi mo, hindi pa matapos yung campaign. The usual campaign period is only 2 weeks. After the parliament is dissolved, within 10 to 12 days, meron ka ng bagong parliament. Because you only go to the electoral district and you campaign on the electoral district. You are not campaigning in the whole Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You are campaigning only in your electoral district. So you don't need 3 months to do that. No term limits. There will be no, even political dynasties will be irrelevant. Why? You have political dynasties and the empirical evidence supports me here. Orion, are you there? I'm sure you can say more about that later. But the reason why you have political dynasties is because you have term limits. You told people that ikaw ganitong taon ka lang pwedeng elect. Sabihin, ang ganda sana ng gagawin ko. Itong kapatid ko si Eric, siya na nga ang aking sunod na mag-elect, no? Mag-campaign. At marami na akong naitanim na mga magagandang mga proyekto. Siyempre, Eric is more likely to be elected. Not so much because we have the same surname, Carlos, but because he just followed through what I earlier started. Why will there be no political dynasties? Which is so antithetical, by the way, to democracy. Because you can only be elected by the electoral district. Never mind that your surname is the same as mine. Do you see? These are really the things that we have to think about. And I think if we're talking about strategic communication, Senator Padilla, this is how we should sell it. No term limits, no political dynasties. These are irrelevant issues in a parliamentary system. Okay, well, I don't know how much more I can go deeply on this, but do I have the time?
Opo.
Okay. All right. What else does a parliamentary system require? It needs a very, very strong bureaucracy. That is the reason why in parliamentary systems you have what is called permanent secretaries, because it's not the case here where when you have a change of administration, you change everybody up to director. Do you know, I wrote a book, by the way, Senator Padilla, on bureaucratic reform. I'll give you copies, no? Sorry sa commercial, ha? Pero doon, nakita ko ang presidente will appoint upwards of 5,000 positions. I'm sure, Senator Pimentel and Padilla, you know that mag-choose nga lang tayo ng 10, nahihirapan tayo. Isipin mo, 5,000 yung papakailaman mo every time there is a change in administration. And that's now it's not going to be. In a parliamentary system, only the head of the department, only the head of the ministry will change. And there will be continuing policy because the permanent secretaries will be the ones that will continue the policy, and it's only the direction that the head of the ministry that will direct. Do you see the beauty of all this? The bureaucracy is king in a parliamentary system. That's why when you talk about implementation, never mind that the cabinet secretaries are changing, it's really the bureaucracy under them who will continue under the continuing rules of the game or the rules of, the rules of the civil service or the rules of the bureaucracy. So when we adopt the parliamentary system, all these concomitants, we really have to put in together. You cannot adopt them like fragmented, like with all due respect, you cannot revise the Constitution piece by piece or fragmented. Let's talk of the Constitution like an organism, like a human body. Meron siyang sakit sa kanyang puso, may sakit siya sa kanyang kidney. Wag lang yun ang pakailaman mo. Alaman mo lahat kasi infirmed siya eh. Kasi yung puso niya at saka yung kidney niya, meron siyang relationship, di ba? So hindi mo pwedeng galawin yung economic provisions kasi yung economic provisions, nakatukod siya sa political and social provisions. Hindi ba? So hindi siya pwedeng stand alone. Papalitan mo yung economic. Tapos yung iba hindi mo siya papakailaman. When we are going to revise the Constitution, dapat omnibus ang revision mo. Kasi bawat section doon na papalitan mo, ay meron siya mga pinsan sa other sections. Mag-move lahat siya eh. They will all be moving parts. So, I'm sorry, I apologize if I go against the notion that you can in fact revise the Constitution piecemeal. You can't. Otherwise, we will be wasting our time, and some of the time we will again revise the Constitution. And we don't like to do that. You know, revising the Constitution is not like suddenly, we scratch our head and let's revise the Constitution. Sa ligang batas po natin yan. It's the basic law of the land. It is not revised willy-nilly. It's not as if, ganito yung kapritsyo natin ngayon, we change it. No, we don't. We're changing it because we want structural change. We want structural change because we want behavior change. I think I shall conclude at that point. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po sa aming kalihim. Napakaganda po ng inyong pagpapaliwanag, lalong-lalo na po doon sa usapin na magkaharap na yung dalawa. Hindi po nagtataguan. Napakaganda po noon. Kasi yun po ang gusto ng ating mga kababayan, na gusto nila, marinig nila na sa bibig mismo ng mga pinuno nila kung ano yung mga plano nila ng harapan. Hindi po pwede na dadaan pa muna sa media, kanya-kanya munang pagalingan sa media, kanya-kanyang banatan doon, pero hindi naman sila nagkakaharap. Napakaganda po talaga noong harapan na nandiyan yung shadow government, nandoon yung ruling, sige, banatan kayo dyan. Yun po sana ang gusto natin na mangyari, para yung ating mga kababayan ay hindi nangangapa. Patungkol naman po doon sa...
May I immediately react to that? Okay, that's a very good point. Because during the question hour, the Prime Minister, in fact, together with Government of the Day, we say Government of the Day because at any day they can be ousted. That's the reason why we use that term. The government, in fact, can stake the life of this government on a question of policy. Policy X, for example. No? And when he stakes the life of his government on a question of policy and he does not get the vote, he will be ousted. That's one other great part about parliamentary system.
Opo, ibig niyo pong sabihin, hindi kailangan ng people power.
No, you don't need people. You just oust him. But, Senator, when...
Kasi nagkaroon na po ng addiction yata ang Pilipino sa people power. Lagi na lang, punta tayo sa EDSA. Marami lang tayo ng tao dyan. Sa parliamentary po, hindi na po kailangan yan.
Meron po nung role ang rally sa ating liberal democracy. Pero wag ho natin sa kalye gawin ang ating ang mga pagbabago.
Maraming salamat po. Ngayon po, baka may gusto pong...
Umaabot lang naman sa kalye kasi yung protesta pag walang structure na dadaanan kasi yung grievance yung hinaing ng taong bayan eh. In a parliamentary system, nandun yung structure. May grievance kami, may hinanakit kami sa legislatura, sa parliament. Yung aming problema sa ngayon, hindi nila binibigyan ng tamang atensyon o tamang kilos. Palitan natin sa eleksyon. So, pipressure namin ang aming member of parliament to siguro a vote of no confidence para to dissolve the leadership in the parliament, mapipilitan to call an election. And then hopefully the election will reflect, makita ng eleksyon yung sentimiento ng taong bayan. Kaya importante rin na clean and honest elections dapat. So, tignan natin yung mga mga bansang yon na talagang pinatibay na nila yung electoral system nila, pinagkakatiwalaan nila ron, at saka walang insentibong mandaya ron because yung taong bayan na mismo ang susuka ka kung mandaraya ka sa eleksyon or you will be ostracized and forever remembered. So, sanctity yun. Kasi yun ang paraan eh. Yun ang paraan ng pagbabago eh. So yun po yun. So para sa akin, yung parliamentary system reflects the needs of the society at the present time eh. Kasi kung hindi mo sinasagot yun, you do not belong to parliament. You will be ousted in an honest election reflecting the will of the people. Kaya yung mga patago-tago na member of the cabinet or of the government, magiging permanente na yung pagtatago nila kasi hindi na sila magiging member of the government. They will be ousted, yun na nga ang sabi, through an election, reflecting the will of the people. Yun po, so marami po itong marami talagang kailangan natin, pagbabagong kailangan gawin. Tapos yun na, since posible yung government of the day matanggal at any time, kailangan may matibay pa rin yung gobyernong naiwan. Kasi meron yatang possibility, Secretary, no, na that there's a period of time that there is no government of the day formed yet, ganun. So,
That's the reason why you have the ceremonial president to bridge over.
yes, so that's why matibay yung bureaucracy. Kasi even without a head to give the direction for the moment, tuloy ang gobyerno, existing ang gobyerno. So these are many features, Mr. Chairman, na pagandaan talaga natin lahat ng mga yan. So thank you po, thank you.
Napakaganda po. Kasi kakapangyari lang po niyan sa UK na kailan lang kay Boris Johnson ba? Boris, di ba? Na nagkaroon sila ng eleksyon, nanalo nga siya, pero ang nangyari, tinatanggal siya pinag-resign siya dahil medyo may mga iskandalo siyang ginawa, COVID, pero tumutoma siya, nagalit ang tao pinag-resign siya, nag-eleksyon. Nanalo pa rin siya. Pero nangyari, yung kanyang mga minister nag-resign. So wala siyang nagawa. Natanggal siya, palit siya.
If you will notice there, despite the fact that they ousted Boris Johnson, still the Conservative Party controlled the majority in the House of Commons. And therefore, they chose among themselves the next leader. No? But if the majority party loses its majority, we're talking arithmetic majority, no? Then they go to the country and have an election. Yeah.
Yun ang maganda Sige po, Senator.
Yun po yun. So, kung nakita natin, change is is easier to achieve under a parliamentary system. So, the party controlling the majority of the parliament made a change within. So internal, nagawa nila, bago. Kasi yung face nila, ayaw na ng tao. Let's say it's masyadong too costly for the party to maintain that face of the party. Palitan, internal. Tapos sinasabi nga sa atin ni Secretary Carlos, kung kailangan silang palitan yung mismong majority, kaya rin. Because bakit papalitan? Nagbago sentimiento ng electorate. Hindi na kayo ang representative, the tamang representative sa panahon na ito. Maybe sa last election, totoo. Nagbago. So nagbago sentimiento namin, papalitan. So, ganun po. So, I mean, napakaganda if we are after a structure which will allow changes in the government to be made easier because the structures make it possible. So, napakaganda. And then kung ganyan nga, you're a member of parliament, you're the persons running the government, parati kang on your toes. So pati yung change in behavior nga sinasabi ni Secretary Carlos, on your toes, hindi yung katulad kahapon na na-atake ni Senator Villar na ang tamad nyo, ayaw nyo magtrabaho. O, gano'n. So, change of behavior, on your toes parati. Di ba? Kasi kahapon, ma'am, ang excuse na nabibigay, we are a member of the board. The board, this is the board decision. We need approvals, 2 to 3 levels of approvals. Ganun yung kahapon na excuses na nabibigay. So, you are not on your toes. In effect, kung tutuusin, the whole structure is not on your toes kasi you can tuturo you can ipasa mo yung bola pasa mo yung blame which is also lumalabas doon sa ating blue ribbon kay Senator Tolentino na excuses din, pasa rin ng bola. Gusto nga niya manood daw ng Gilas, nag-investigate siya ng blue ribbon, nakapanood din siya ng basketball game. Kasi anong napanood niya? Puro assist, pasa bola. The blame game, the pointing, the finger pointing, gano'n nangyayari. Unlike in a parliamentary system, kung mapagod na ang taong bayan, pagod na kami sa passing the ball nyo, papagod na kami sa finger pointing ninyo. Ay, palitan na lang yung party in power with a new party because they are disorganized or whatever. So, ganun po yun. So I really want to pursue all this parliamentary system of government because it might baka mas angkop na sa panahon sa panahon na lalo na ngayon na ang bilis ng pagbabago
Yes.
technology,
Yes.
even science, so economic policies, iba na mga economic theories ngayon, wala pa, bago-bago na so we can react siguro more quickly if we adopt a parliamentary system of government. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Napakalinaw po ng pagpapaliwanag
Mr. Chairman.
ating Senator Pimentel. Natataas po ng kamay si Senator Tolentino. Senator Tolentino.
Opo, first I'd like to congratulate Professor Carlos for that very substantial statements made a while ago. Secretary Carlos and I have known each other for years, hindi naman siguro decades. And I congratulate her for elucidating some items that should have been at the forefront of national discussions years ago. Mr. Chairman, allow me to quote something that I stumbled upon. I was there during the National Heroes Day celebration in La Union a week ago or last Monday. And it so happened that one of the greatest sons of La Union is a former Senator Camilo Ucias from La Union. And Camilo Ucias, in February 2, 1962, made the same assertion like what our chairman is saying, or even Senator Pimentel. And if I'd like to have this recorded again for the second time, and I quote, Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me, Senator Primicias had a privileged speech in 1962, and the gist is this: what kind of government should we have? The question was answered by the Malolos Convention when they included in the preamble of that document, and I quote from memory, this is from Senator Ucias, I was not yet born then, el gobierno de la república es popular, representativo, alternativo, y responsable. These adjectives used in that phraseology need not be explained. We know what a gobierno popular should be, namely one rooted in the will of the people. We are operating under that ideology. And we also know that a government should be responsible. Mr. President, this is Senator Ucias. There is one adjective used in that constitution which I think, as far as I know, is not found in any other written constitution of the entire world. I refer to the adjective alternativo. There are no written precedents or jurisprudence on this matter. We can only imagine that those fathers of the Malolos Constitution did envision, and I dare say that they included that adjective as a rebellion against hereditary monarchy, wherein the son of a king or emperor merely in virtue of accident of birth may ascend to the throne upon the death of the occupant of that monarchical government. I believe, again, Senator Ucias, that it was an expression of the conviction of the Filipino people that there must be periodic change. Ito po yung sinasabi ni Senator Pimentel kanina. There must be periodic change. Turnuhan in the national language. A government nga masukat-sukat in the Ilocano language. Now we are operating under that. That was during the time of the speech of Senator Primicias. Mr. President, I think the proceedings today is very timely because during that period, they talk about the upper house and the lower house called Cámara Alta and Cámara Baja. It should have been in one building where the upper house would be located, the Senate would be located in the upper floor, the Cámara Baja would be located in the lower floor. But then again, Mr. President, after 1962, this speech of Senator Ucias still would reverberate in the memory of historians because we're now talking of parliamentary, federalism, and these are all very timely, especially with the explanation given a while ago by my former professor, Professor Secretary Carlos, and I hope the discussion would be elevated nationally to a level beyond partisan politics, and even a discussion that should include the grassroots level. So, Mr. Chairman, though I was absent last time, I would be a participant in your committee hearings virtually and perhaps later on physically. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me po, sir.
Maraming salamat po ating Vice Chairman sa ating Senator Francis Tolentino. Meron lang po ako, napakaganda po nung sinabi nyo, no? 1962. Alam nyo po, senador po yan eh. Sigurado po ako yung sinasabi nilang pagbabago na yan kasi nung 1971 kasama po ang ama ng ating Senator Coco Pimentel. Gumawa po sila noong 1973 Constitution. Parliament na po yun eh. So nakita natin na talagang yung sinasabi nyo na dumadating talaga yung panahon na kailangan magpalit ng tumatakbo ang panahon eh. Kailangan nag-a-adjust. Sabi nga ni Senator Coco, dapat nag-a-adjust talaga.